Better Games, Better Gamers is a show where we talk about how games shape and are shaped by the communities and the people around them. For this episode, I'm joined by Charmaine Duff, the founder and director of Women-Led Games, an organization dedicated to creating spaces that celebrate the incredible work of women in gaming. I do want to give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. I'm the founder and director of Women-Led Games. Started to, amplify women in the game space in their studios, because when you have an indie studio and you're going for funding, especially right now, it's really, really hard. But we see statistically that funding dollars don't typically go to women-owned businesses, just like across the board. Not necessarily just in video games, but across any women-owned business. I believe last year it was like 2%, barely 2% of newly found businesses, that women-owned businesses, out of like all the businesses out there, got funding. It's very hard for us to get that investment money. First off, because we're indie, and it's harder because we're women, and I honestly don't understand why. Because there's research showing that women-owned businesses actually make more profit typically after being invested in. So it's kind of interesting to see the disparity there, and I don't quite understand it, especially from an investment perspective, because if I wanted to invest in something, I would want to invest in something, one, that I believe in, and two, that I know is going to have a nice ROI. All that to say is created Women-Led Games to help uplift more women-led studios, and we had our first big digital showcase event in March, our second one supported by Summer Game Fest in June, and we are having our third this year underneath the Game Awards umbrella. So it's really, really great to have their support as well. And it'll also be on IGN, and GameSpot will be covering it as well. So super, super excited for that. And yeah, that's what we're doing. It's only a year in. I feel like from a year ago, we've grown exponentially. I never would have imagined taking part in a digital event for one of Jeff Keighley's, things. But here we are, and we've got a lot more room to grow. So super excited.
I wanted to kind of take a step back and hearing a little bit about kind of what the mission is, but curious about kind of your connection to it and kind of your connection to game. Maybe start with what were kind of some of your favorite and most memorable games when you were younger?
My favorite games. What made me a gamer? I don't know if this was my first console, but my first console that I got really, really attached to, I think, was Sega Genesis. And the Sonic games on there, you had, and Flicky and Shining Force, and The Tick is one that not a lot of people have heard about, but it's something that I remember so distinctly in my mind because it was just so silly. And then Final Fantasy VII was the RPG that completely destroyed me as a child and made me fall in love with the JRPG genre. And I have a funny story surrounding that if we have time for me to tell that.
We were talking already about Final Fantasy, and I was like, oh, I don't know if we should spend all our time talking about Final Fantasy, but now part of me kind of, no, it's fine. We can talk about Final Fantasy. So this episode's going to be about Final Fantasy. So feel free to let's dive in. What's your story?
Okay, so let me think. I think I was around pre-K kindergarten age. I have older brothers, so they were playing Final Fantasy VII, and I was watching them play, and I was around the age where I was still learning to read proficiently. And so Final Fantasy VII is one of those games where I made sure to pick up my reading speed so that I could keep follow along, because there was no voice acting back then in the game. So I was just staring at the TV trying to, follow along to this game because I was enraptured with it, the music, the characters and everything. And naturally I fell in love with Aerith because I saw a lot of myself in her. Of course, that fated scene happens, and I was I don't know, I want to say it was 6 or something. But I was in love with Aerith. I was she's my best friend. She's I want to be like her, stuff like that. And that happened, and I was devastated. And I go to school the next day, and I am so sorry to whoever was the teacher that had to take care of me. But I was on the playground that day, and I remembered what happened, and I just fell to the ground, and I was sobbing. And my teacher my teacher came up to me and she's like, Charmaine, are you okay? What happened? What's wrong? And I was like, my best friend died. She got stabbed right in front of me. And so, of course, the teacher freaks out, takes me to the office. They call my parents. I think there was law enforcement from the school that showed up, and they're like, what's going on? And my mom had to come and explain, like, no, she is a video game character that she's like, she loves, and like, everything's fine. I swear nothing weird's going on at home. And yeah, my brothers harassed me about that for years and years and years, and they still bring it up every now and then. But that is the game that like got me in love with RPGs and just gaming in general, and like the storytelling and how it can impact people. Yeah, that's my funny fandom story. The crazy fandom got its clutches into me at a very young age.
I do want to ask, remake and rebirth. What's your take on the dynamic between Tifa and Aerith?
I love the more in-depth storytelling that we're seeing between Tifa and Aerith, because in the original, it felt more like they were like friends beside each other, and they like, but slightly rivals, because there's that tension, right? And the story isn't as in depth in the original, and like since the original, we've had like 20 however many years of added back lore and stuff like that. But I love the dynamic that's coming out now with the rebirth and remake and stuff. I think it just makes the characters that much more richer, and it really helps like stabilize the fandom a little bit more, I feel like. So there's like a little bit less argument about what's going on with all the relationships with all the characters and stuff. I really appreciate it. I really like the added depth of the narrative, and it's making me like Tifa more, to be honest, because before I was like, oh, Tifa's like, she's okay, but she's, you know, I feel like she's got a lot more depth now in the added content than she kind of did in the original. But maybe that's just because I was obsessed with Aerith and I wasn't paying attention to Tifa. I don't know.
I do have to ask, did you read Traces of Two Bests?
I haven't.
I would recommend, if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan, if you're an Aerith fan, it's a must read.
I'm down for more reading.
Looking at the game industry as a whole, how does gender representation, sexuality, women's representation, how has all of that evolved kind of in larger society, and especially in gaming? So I'm curious, kind of from your perspective, and especially kind of related to women-led games, is how do you kind of feel about the progress the industry has made and towards being a more welcoming space and kind of having these conversations with women?
I'll speak about this as more of a fan, a gamer, and then more as like on the industry side, albeit like keeping in mind that, you know, my industry experience is mostly indie. So and whatever I hear from AAA are for people that I know personally that have had experience AAA and had other things happen. So as a gamer, I feel like representation is a lot better just across the board. And I feel like that is because we made sure as an industry to include those DEI initiatives, right? The same initiatives that people are getting upset about now and making noise about now. And by people, I mean like really weird factions of, I don't know. It used to be the first Gamergate was like started on 4chan or something weird. And then now it's like some weird Gamergate thing happening on Twitter that I just stopped paying attention to because it's just silly. And then, you know, we've got the stuff that's going on with politics right now and DEI. So, you know, you kind of see lately with the industry, DEI is getting cut at a much higher rate than most of the other layoffs that are happening. So that's really a shame. And I'm hoping that doesn't result in us going backwards, because I think with those initiatives, we've seen a lot more representation, not just with women, but with people of color and like all sorts of different cultures, people from the LGBTQ plus community, you know, so many more opportunities in games and seeing themselves portrayed. And it's so important for people to see themselves portrayed, like instead of seeing the same faces over and over and over again, the same cultures and things like that. Like it's really important to see yourself represented and feel that connection to a character. I mean, I just explained the influence it had on myself, seeing another person that looked like me, acted like me, talked like me as a child. Imagine if you grew up and never had that experience, which is, typical for a lot of people of color and stuff like that. So, having those characters and that representation, I feel like is extremely important. And I really hope that, we don't get rid of DEI initiatives, or, maybe they'll rename it to make people feel better. But like they've technically always been there, but we've been more vocal about it lately, which I think is good. But now I feel like we're starting to pedal backwards, which is unfortunate. So as a gamer, I think it's great. The growth has been really, really great, but I am concerned about the future, given recent events. As somebody in the industry, though, like working in the industry, as opposed to when I wasn't in it, and I had kind of this rose-colored glasses type of thing where I was like, oh, like I can be in the games industry. I just need to get into it, and then it'll be easy sailing from there. And then, the layoffs happen, and then you realize, oh, actually, there's a lot of sexism in the games industry, in different studios, even. There's reports coming out like every few months about like a CEO, being charged with sexual assault or something. Like harassment, you hear about harassment and spiked drinks and things like that at game industry events, when all you're trying to do is network and like be around other developers and stuff like that. And it makes it scary. Like I've had a few thoughts where I'm like, maybe I don't want to go to these industry events, even though I know it'd be good for my career, because I don't know if I'd be safe. We deal with that a lot already in the world as women, but when you're entering, it hits a lot harder when you're entering a space that you've loved since you were a child and you've grown up with, and you're like finally approaching your dreams and taking steps to grow towards that dream. And then you're hit with this, roadblock that kind of crushes that fantasy you had in your head. And I know like there's always going to be some sort of roadblock like that, but when it comes to like your own personal and mental safety, just because you're a different gender or you look differently, like it's really extremely disappointing, and it just adds a lot more stress than I should be thinking about as a game developer, right? I shouldn't have to be thinking about, my personal safety, at least when it comes to that, like when going to industry events and then talking to people. So there's that. But then, you meet other people who are really, really amazing, and like they'll see what you're trying to do, and they will lift you up and like put you in front of so many other people. Like women-led games wouldn't have gotten in front of Jeff Keighley if somebody, I didn't even know him, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, I see what you're trying to do. Like, have you considered like participating in something like Summer Game Fest or the Game Awards? Like, what do you? I was like, oh yeah, I kind of thought about it, like maybe like 5 to 10 years from now when I get to that level, right? And this happened like a few months after our first showcase in March, and he was like, okay, I'll connect you. I was like, okay, like there's great, amazing people like that, but then you see the broader aspect of things, and it's kind of like whiplash. It's really weird. So I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on my feelings on, how gender is in the industry. It's strange.
Yeah, well, I love that kind of story about someone seeing what you're doing and then making that connection. Did kind of want to talk a little bit about that, and I think because it's the perception, but also factually is like it is a male dominant industry, and looking at kind of all the events that have been happening over the past few weeks in the larger scope outside of gaming. From your perspective, what can we as men and just men as a whole do to be better allies, and how can we work together to build a better and more sustainable gaming community?
I would say one of the biggest things you can do is when you see somebody being like sexist, or you see those things, or you see a woman that's uncomfortable in a situation with a male coworker or something, step up and be like, man, that's not cool. Because what needs to happen really, like we advocate for ourselves all the time and it's exhausting, but what needs to happen is other men need to be calling out each other. Like they need to be like, hey, this is a no BS zone, you need to stop doing that, that's inappropriate, or I'll ask you to leave. Like, that's not how you talk to a person. That's not how you talk to me. Why would you talk to her that way? Why would you talk to them that way? I think that alongside with, you know, kids just entering the industry, like setting those expectations up front about their behavior and how they should treat each other, because like it's not just an industry thing, unfortunately, it's a cultural thing. Like, you know, there's just inherent sexism in like everything. So, you know, being that example for other men to follow is extremely important, because people will say, you know, we support women and stuff like that all the time. They'll do their initiatives and it's great, but then they don't walk the walk in their day to day. And like the platitudes are nice and stuff, but it doesn't mean anything if it's not executed, you know? So I think that's one of the biggest things you can do. And then, you know, just, you know, when they reached out to me, like if you see something you believe in, whether it's a man or a woman, just give them the same sort of initiative and attention that you would, you know, a male coworker, and be like, hey, I want to amplify this. This is really cool. I appreciate this. Like, here, let me connect you with people. Yeah, I want to say like treat us like you would a male coworker, but at the same time, like we do need a little bit more advocacy and support, just because naturally we're up against a little bit more than your male coworkers typically are. So
Yeah, especially so relevant right now, where men are at in Barbie movie did it a little bit. It's like we have this independent, successful woman, and then suddenly men are in this place where it's like, okay, what do I do? And I think Final Fantasy does a great job of this, of like, okay, this is a vulnerable man. This is a man that now is trying to find his place in the world. Is maybe like you're hearing from all these women, like, I don't need you. I don't need you. And so when you come to that, is what kind of would you say if like, okay, I'm 19, 21, early 20s, and hearing from all the women in my life, like, I don't need you anymore. Yeah, I don't want that. And I think that's, to me, some of that, of a lot of the like anti-woke culture and
yeah.
there's a reaction to that. And so I think I want to kind of hear from you but a little bit about like what would you say to someone who's in that transformative period where they're trying to feel out what it means to be an adult male in today's society?
Well, there's kind of two parts to this, because a lot of this is personal internal work, and it's not necessarily something that a woman can solve for you at all. This is a very personal thing that you have to go through yourself just as a human being. And this is something I would tell even my own daughter. I've got two sons and a daughter. I would tell them both the same things. You need to be focusing on yourself, getting yourself right, taking care of your own mental health, taking care of your own career, figuring out who you are as a person before you decide to bring on the responsibility of taking care of somebody else. And it should not be your goal to be like the ultimate savior, caretaker of this person. It's a partnership. And that's, you know, the stability of any good relationship is based on a mutual partnership. And you don't want to be in a relationship, honestly, with somebody where you are the main caretaker. Like, you should be supporting each other. You're not always going to be, it's not always going to be 50-50. There's going to be a lot of days where you're contributing like 75 and she's like 25, or, you know, vice versa, or, you know, you'll both be performing at 100% that day, and that's great. Woohoo, 200%, go you. But it's a partnership, right? So it's not, you're going to pick up where they lack sometimes, and they're going to pick up where you lack sometimes. It's all about your own personal fortitude and maturity, and that's something that really, that needs to be your focus. It doesn't need to be, I mean, relationships aren't your focus necessarily, as self-growth is, and understanding where you, like, who you would be in that partnership, if that makes sense. So I mean, it's not something that women can help men figure out. Like, that's a very personal, like, men have to figure out their own crap type of a thing. They don't need to be putting their worth, and this is something I would tell my own daughter, never put your self-worth, your worth or anything into another person, because they're human, just like you. We're all flawed. We're going to let each other down. We let ourselves down all the time. Don't be doing that. Don't put your self-worth in other human beings. And I feel like men are raised to do that because they feel like they have to be the caretaker, and they also are raised to not actually be in tune with their own feelings. And so when they are confronted with something that really upsets them or confuses them or goes against what they've been taught, because they don't know how to deal with those issues, those feelings internally, they lash out in different ways, which I feel like that's what we're seeing, right? It's like, oh, they don't know how to process this, so their immediate thing is going to result in fear and anger, because like that's the natural course of things. When something goes wrong and you don't understand why, and you can't make heads or tails of it, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be afraid, and typically anger is associated with that fear, when you feel like you failed. So uh, it's very much internal. Like, men need to men need to figure it out, and it's not really something that women can come in and give therapy on or help them grow through, right? That's something that we've been doing for ages, honestly, and we don't want that in a partnership anyway, especially if there's kids involved. We've got kids. We don't need an adult kid. We don't need that. So
Yeah, well, and I think it's so. In the other kind of way I wanted to go with that is, and again, you talked about kind of this person that helped you kind of make that transition from your first showcase to kind of some of these bigger showcases. And so the other kind of side of that, and both kind of talking, and kind of want to ask both about kind of women and men. Who were some of your mentors and inspirations and kind of people that have helped you in your career, and kind of how has kind of shaped both what you're doing with women-led games and also just kind of more widely in your career?
yeah, so there's I would say the first person I would mention is my friend Crystal, who got me in the industry in the first place. Fellow mom, fellow aspiring game developer, and we met in a Facebook group back when I cared about Facebook, years and years ago, and it was for people like who wanted to be in game development, and I don't code. I was in the middle of college for a cybersecurity degree at the time, and I was just like, I was focused on that as well. So game development had always been something that I was interested in, but hadn't gotten into, didn't think it was a reality, to be honest. And so I met her. She was going to a convention to show off a game she was working on. And I was like, oh man, that would be so cool. And it was like a tiny little convention, like a local convention, right? It's not anything crazy. But I was like, oh man, that'd be so cool. Like, I'd love to do that one day. And she's like, well, you live nearby. I can just pick you up. I was like, are you sure? Like, I could be a serial killer. You don't know me. Like, she was like, yeah, I'm sure you're fine. I'll pick you up. I was like, sweet. And I had a blast communicating with everybody. And then we kept in touch, but, we both sort of went our separate ways going back to school. She was going for a computer science degree. And for her capstone project, about a year and a half, 2 years later, she came back to me and she was creating this game called Critter Crops, which just released in February, by the way. Go check it out. She was creating that game as a capstone project for her computer science degree. And she came to me and she was like, hey, Charmaine, I'm developing this game. And I posted about it on a few forums and people seem to really like it. I'm thinking about actually making it a full-fledged game instead of just like a capstone project. And she was like, I know you want to get in the game industry, and I can't pay you right now, but like, I'm also not getting paid myself. Like, do you want to do this together? And do you want to handle the people side, the community social side? Because I know you have some background in that, and I also don't like talking to people. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how I got into the gaming industry. Worked with her on that for like 2.5, 3 years until we released it back in February, and helped her get a publisher, helped her start 2 Kickstarters and fully fund 2 Kickstarters. We have like a merch line with, our Critter Crop plushies. And from there, I just networked like crazy with other community managers and created women-led games last year as a response to the Women's Day Steam sale being canceled. That was a bummer. So I was like, okay, I'll make women-led games. And from there, I met my friend David, who is another person that I absolutely admire. Is like my best friend. And he helps me produce it. He's the founder and producer of everything for Latin American Games Showcase. So he saw what I was doing. He was like, hey, I will help you produce this showcase. And we've been working together ever since. We work on each other's showcases now, and it's just the best partnership. Seriously, one of my best friends. He's amazing. Ryan reached out. He's the one that connected me with Jeff. So he was really, really great. I still attribute a lot of our growth in our first year to that, because I don't think I would have made that connection otherwise. And then just so many amazing people in the community management space who know the horrors that are indie community management. so much support there. Victoria Tran is a big inspiration, and Jenny Wyndham from Wholesome, really great. My friend Catherine and Krista and all those other awesome, amazing community people. I love you, community people. Really great people. And yeah, those have been my biggest support networks right now. And I'm only, I think this is my 4th year in the industry, so I don't have like a huge growing list, but those are like my top people that I'm like, I love these people.
I think so much too is community management is this place where you're at this place where you're in between being a gamer and being a game developer, and you have this, it is this kind of really challenging space to be in. So curious to hear you talk a little bit more about like what is the day-to-day of, just briefly
the horrors
touch on
like,
the day-to-day of community management, but also I think not just the horrors, but I think also just why do we keep coming back to it? Why is that something that it's like it is such a part of us, and it's like we do come together around this.
It is so amazing and so gut-wrenching and so mentally rewarding, but also like draining. Especially if you're in the indie space, which is how I got my start. So, in indie, in most any profession, like whether you're programming or doing art or whatever, you're touching a few different compartments of development, right? But when you're indie and community management, you're not just community management for Discord or like, Reddit or whatever. It's social media management, content creation, sometimes QA for some reason, email campaign marketer, content creator, influencer, outreach manager, ad manager, all the things that kind of encompass marketing is typically put on the poor little community manager who is either a volunteer or making like less than like livable wage a lot of the time. But we're here because we love games. We're gamers, and we love the game development side of how they're made. Typically we love our developers if they're not completely mistreating us. We love our developers, we love games in general, and we love our communities. We love building up those communities and introducing them to something new that gives them something comfortable, like a space that makes them comfortable to talk about and communicate in. And so I think that's one of the most rewarding things about being a community manager, is seeing people interact with our game. And like when people come to us and they're like, this, like, this made my day, or this made my month or my year, or like, I really needed this right now because, things have been really, really hard, or, content, when they see content that represents them and they come in and they're like, this is like, games are just such an amazing medium to reach so many people in so many different ways. And it's really great to see their reactions to those games in like real time and communicate with them and get excited with them and like share that, that energy with them. So I feel like it's something that like I won't get tired of that aspect, but I will also say it is very easy to burn out in indie community management for sure. Out of all the professions in indie, I think community management is probably one of the higher burnout rates. I hear it's really much better in double and triple A because like there's an actual department and there's other people helping you with things, but it's still hard anyway because you're dealing with those bigger communities, right? And they're coming in, and sometimes people are just mad, and sometimes they're not even really just mad about your game. They're just mad in general with like life, and they're taking it out on your community and your game. And you're like, whoa, calm down, buddy. but yeah, I don't know. It's great. I just like went off in like La La Land about community management, but
We haven't actually talked that much about Women Led Games other than kind of your introduction. So did kind of want to go back there talking a little bit about what you're looking forward to for kind of the future of Women Led Games, and kind of what are you kind of excited about and what are you kind of working on?
this is our first year doing our Game Awards Edition showcase. It was also our first year working on Summer Game Fest. I'm really excited because we'll be doing the same thing again next year. So yay! But so far we've also had partnerships with GamesBeat to help bring more women into the investment sort of networking space. And that's been really, really great. I would love to continue our partnership there. I have a really good relationship with them there. And then, beyond that, I'm getting to a point in growth where I feel like it's starting to outpace me a bit, and I need to bring on a partner because it's just me and David, and I do all the businessy and community and marketing and all that I just explained side. That's all me. And then David worries about like production and actually editing the showcase and things like that. So we need somebody to help kind of split up my duties so that I can focus a little bit less on biz dev and biz growth and focus more on directing and the social and the community side, because right now trying to do all of it at once is a lot. But at some point, I'd love to get to a point where we can offer scholarships to be able to go to things like GDC, or maybe get to a point where we can offer a fund or something to a startup indie studio or something like that. But that's not anything I'm promising right now. That's just like my goal dreams sometime in the future, maybe. And long-term goals for Women Led Games, honestly, would be for it to not have to exist. I would love to get to a point in the industry where I don't have to be constantly advocating for women and it's just normal. I feel like that's the case with most underrepresented people in any space. It's like we just don't want to have to keep doing it. But yeah, so far, the showcases are going to keep happening as long as there's that support and that need, and continue to work with GamesBeat, hopefully, and at some point increase our services as we continue to grow. So
with the showcase, what's that process? How you actually kind of highlight both games and the creators and kind of some of the discussions that are happening?
So for our first showcase, it was really important to us to kind of make a big bang and be like, you're focused, or a developer focused showcase. And so that meant we had like a 3-day event where, the first day was, a showcase of a select amount of games, which, by the way, we had like over like 200 game submissions for that. Could only show about like, I think our first one we showed 25 games. I can't remember. We try to keep the shows like under an hour because like beyond that, like people don't have the focus to do that. Go beyond that. So yeah, we had the trailer showcase the first day. The second day was a celebration of the devs themselves, and it was more in-depth game developer like interviews and things like that, talking more about their games. And then we also like to highlight women in the content creator space, the streaming space, because as indies with our small budgets, we really, really rely on content creators and things like that to help us with our marketing boosts, because we don't have the marketing dollars to typically put into things like paid ads, or we can't always pay like really big influencers to like do a whole thing. And so we really rely on those really awesome content creators that are just more than happy to like and I don't recommend like just like asking for free content all the time. Like those content creators deserve to be paid for what they're doing. Like I could not imagine being a content creator and everything that entails. I'm just like, just thinking about it, I'm just like, oh no. But like there are, they are also, a huge support for us indies with a small budget. And they're always usually more than happy to be flexible in their rates, or more than happy to just receive a key and play the game and review it. especially if they're going to purchase it, it's a content creator that likes your game already and is going to purchase it anyway. Having the key for free, they're like, oh sweet, like I was going to review this anyway, but now I can do it for free. So we had a content creator day as well, where we interviewed different content creators and what they like to do, and we kept it developer focused and not necessarily women developer focused. Like we wanted, like everybody we were interviewing were women, but we weren't, it's not a, oh, woe is me, the industry is hard type of interviews things. Like it's purely, what is your experience as a game developer? Because that's the conversations we need to be having. Like, just let women be game developers and let them talk about game development, right? Don't make it a thing where it's like, oh look, we have a woman on the panel, look at us, we're so inclusive, yay, we did it. It's like, just let them be there and talk about game development. They're good at game development, let them talk about their work. And so that's what we really emphasize with our shows and stuff. It's like, we're just showing off the really cool, awesome things that developers are doing and the games they are searching for funding for. It's like, hey, this is here. Because it's a lot harder for us to just like get in front of investors for whatever reason. But when they see a game in a show that's like got a lot of eyes and has a lot of attention, like women-led games is starting to get, they're more likely to pay attention to that game and, be more interested in investing in it after seeing like kind of public reception and things like that. So that's been our biggest, that's kind of how we represent women, I guess, in that way.
I think the other thing you were talking about, even from the investment perspective, there's this struggle to get investment, but there's this return. Looking at what are the biggest media franchises just in the world, the top 2 media franchises across entertainment and largely merchandise is Pokemon and Hello Kitty. And
yes.
I love, like, Hello Kitty. You look at Marvel, you look at Batman, you look at Spider-Man. Guess what? Hello Kitty's bigger than Spider-Man and Marvel put together. It's huge. Imagining I'm an investor, what would tell women who are looking to kind of in the community that are looking to get in front of investors and kind of have those conversations?
That's something I wish I had more knowledge in. I feel like even women who have like everything put together, they're more than ready to pitch and have pitched perfectly. Like it's just, unfortunately, I don't know what the hang up is. I don't know, because they can have like amazing, immaculate, beautiful pitches. And, I hear from women all the time where they go with their co-founder. The co-founder happens to be a man. And, but the woman is technically the CEO and like the person to talk to. Right. And they always go to the man first. And then the guy has to be like, no, she's the person you need to talk to. She's got all the information you need, type of a thing. So, it's just, I don't know how to fix that, unfortunately, because we know what to do. We have, you need to go in with your pitch deck and your budget and know what you're asking for, know what your potential return can be for this investor, and show up, be professional, do your thing. Women usually crush it going out and doing, like, their pitches are usually pretty damn good. It's just a matter of who you talk to, unfortunately. And I don't think there's any more advice I could give to women beyond what they're already doing. Besides maybe having a male ally, maybe just kind of advocating for them, which is unfortunate and frustrating because like not everybody has that one, and it shouldn't be necessary to, we've got all the data and statistics in our pitch decks. Why do we need somebody else to advocate for us? We have the experience. So, I don't know. I wish I knew. I don't know. So Shelby Maladina, former game developer, studio founder, she just created a film for the 48-hour film festival in her area, and it's called Resting Pitch Face. And it basically goes over, everything that women do to go and pitch their game to somebody and like the frustrations they encounter when doing that. And it's a comedy horror, mostly funny, but yeah, it's definitely check it out. I don't want to give any spoilers, but I heard from a lot of women who saw it, and when I first saw it, it was for that 48-hour film festival, and I reached out to her and I was like, hey, do you want to show this at GamesBeat? Like, can I connect you with somebody? You should show this at GamesBeat. This would be perfect, because it's a big networking event for investing and just industry professionals and things like that, talking about their businesses and stuff. I was like, this would be perfect for GamesBeat. And thankfully they were receptive to it. They were like more than happy to show it and kind of advertise it a little bit. But yeah, there was quite a few women there who like were just, yeah, this is exactly how it is. And some of them were like, like really took it to heart. They're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you just have to watch it. Like, it's pretty spot on. And it's more comedy than truth, but it's like it plays on the truths of like, it's typical of what we go through when we go to pitch something. It's great.
So awesome. Yeah. Oh my god. I will watch it this weekend, Shelby. I promise.
Yes. It's a very short one. I think it's like 8 minutes long. Like, it's a very short film. Yeah.
I'll watch this afternoon.
Awesome.
Right after this. So we've taken up. It's like I was like, oh, this is gonna be shorter than my last one. No, this has been one of the longest. Yeah. No, not at all. Okay. So I got 3 more to kind of close us out. One of the things that kind of wanted to close on, a note I kind of wanted to close on is, so we've talked a lot about games, talked a lot about Final Fantasy. What have you been playing recently, and what are you looking forward to?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Gosh, I wish I had more time to play games, but like when you start working in game development, and then I have 3 kids, so that also eats into my gaming time. I can't play anything too scary in front of them, so I have to like sneak onto my computer, and then they end up coming in anyway in the middle of a very scary scene, and I have to like cover my screen. But I've been playing Astrobot a lot. I kind of needed that when it released, just because it's been like a very like rough time in the world, and I just needed something happy and fun, and like it's been really great, like seeing all the different like things you can mess with, and you can tell like the devs just went like full ham on it. Like there's so many different like interactable little things, like I don't know, I love it. And my daughter has been forcing me to. I'm actually almost getting burnt out on it because my daughter keeps forcing me to play through the same levels like 10 times. So I'll be an Astrobot Pro by the end of December. Let's make it an esport or something. And then I'm really looking forward to Ghost of Yotai coming out. That looks amazing. I don't know when that's coming out. It was just revealed, I think, a few months ago. And South of Midnight. I don't think that has a release date yet either. I really want to play those because they look beautiful, and like the art in it is just amazing, and I think the storytelling is going to be really, really great. And yeah, that's all I can think about right now. I know I have like a backlog on everybody does on their Steam page that is like a mile long. But I'm also looking forward to the Indie Game Awards coming up. I'm actually going to be presenting the winner for I should have shouted them out. Indie Game Awards by 61 Indie. They are, they're giving out awards for, best in whatever for the indie game scene specifically. And I met the people from it, and they were just like so amazing and supportive, and they just want to get all the kind of big indie showcase people together and like advocate together for indies. And it has been so fun, and they were open to adding a women-led category and open to adding a community management category to their awards event, because I asked them, and I was just like, yeah, it's so exciting. But I'm going to be presenting the women-led one, and Victoria Tran will be presenting the community management one, and it's just like super, super excited. And so many great indies. I can look it up, and I was on the judging panel too for some of the nominations, but there are so many really great ones, so many nominations.
So cool.
But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to for the rest of the year, and then hopefully I can, have a little bit of a rest period, and then go and tackle my backlog, my never-ending backlog of Steam titles that are just sitting in my library crying, begging for attention.
Well, talking about the backlog, so to kind of close us out, again, we've talked about games the whole time and always talk about the games the whole time. You mentioned, I think it's 3 kids. What are some of the things kind of outside of work and gaming? How do you kind of what are some fun things fun hobbies and things how do you like to spend your time?
Ooh, I wish I had spare time. So I read a lot. I made it a personal challenge like a year and a half ago to read every single day, and I've so far held that up. So that's awesome. Mostly fantasy, but I'll read anything pretty much. And then I'm looking into actually traditional sword fighting classes, like medieval sword fighting. It's there's like a local club that like teaches it, and I'm so excited. I'm like this tiny little short, I'm 5'2", tiny little short lady gonna show up like, bring it on. I'm gonna cut you. So I haven't joined yet. I keep it's on my backlog of things to do because I've been so busy with work and everything, but I also homeschool my 3 kids on top of everything I do, so my schedule is just chaos. So my downtime, I read. I've started picking up embroidery. Just, I don't know why, because it's fun to make pretty designs with thread and stab a piece of fabric, I guess. And trying to focus a little bit more on my health too, my own like mental and physical health, just because, and that's something like game developers really need to focus more on. And I know they know this. Go drink your water, go stretch, get off the computer. I'm talking to you. And that's basically, that's it for now. Hopefully my time will free up at some point, but with kids, that'll happen when they're like 25 maybe.
So speaking of fantasy, what's your series?
Oh, my series. Oh no. I've read like almost 50 books this year, so like hold on. And after a while, when you read so many fantasy books, like they all kind of start to like blur together because like a lot of the world building is similar, or they take inspiration from each other.
I love how difficult of a question this is. I love it.
No.
I was gonna like throw a softball at you, but I don't want to throw a softball at you. I'm just gonna give you this. I'm just gonna let you stew on this for a second.
You're just gonna like, I need to open my reading app now and go through like, gosh. There's a series by I love how Jennifer Armentrout, I think that's how you say her name, writes. There's The Book Thief, I think it's not fantasy, it's like historical fiction. I don't know if you've read it. But it's like the telling of, World War II sort of era, from the perspective of death itself, like the Grim Reaper. And he just writes so beautifully. Like it's just every line he writes is so like poetic, and I don't know how to explain it. You have to read it. The Book Thief is amazing. Definitely one of my top favorite books. And then I've been trying to read the Witcher series because I'm like, I feel like I need to, like as a fantasy person and a gamer, like I need to read the Witcher series. And I've started the first book like 3 times. And I did the same thing with Harry Potter. Like I couldn't, I don't know why. My brain just would not click with it. But I think part of it has to do too with I know the other content. So my brain's just like not as invested in reading it. That might be the problem. Dune, I've been finally reading Dune. But then there's like just silly fantasy books that like just random fantasy books. Like as long as it's recommended to me on my Goodreads, I'm like, okay, sure, I'll try it. But Jennifer L. Armentrout, I love how she writes, and I love how she builds out her world and like the twists and turns in her stories where you're like, what the heck? Like, I love that. If a writer can surprise me, which is a little bit hard to do because I'm pretty good at predicting what's going to happen after being like obsessed with RPGs and like narrative for so long. Like if a writer can surprise me, then they're already in like my top writer list. Yeah, for sure.
GamesBeat, there's a lot of conversations about transmedia. I think that the relationship between books and games and TV and movies and animation, I think that's been a conversation, again, looking at forever, really. But I think especially looking forward to the future of the industry, I feel like it was encouraging to me to hear that Netflix and all that, it's like as a whole the industry is continuing to think about that, and especially within games is we're getting more of these stories. We're getting The Witcher, we're getting Arcane, we're getting kind of all of these transmedia IPs that now aren't just in one medium.
Right. And I think that big boom kind of started back in 2020 when the big investment dollars were going into games. And they were like, okay, we have the opportunity now to like take some risks and invest in some transmedia. But like you mentioned earlier, Hello Kitty and Pokemon, they've been doing that since the beginning. And like I feel like it's something people should have picked up on decades ago, you know? Like you see how obsessed gamers are with their fandoms. Like you wouldn't want to transfer that to like, I don't know, books or trading cards like Pokemon did, merchandise. Most of Pokemon's, you know, money is from merchandise. It's not their shows or their games, it's from their merch. So yeah. So like, you know, you would think, you know, but that's why Hello Kitty is so popular as well. And I think this isn't the first Hello Kitty game that's come out ever, but you can tell that they're also starting to invest more in their games because they're going to come to the Switch. They've been they have their iPad game that they've had out for a year and a half exclusively on Apple's special whatever, I forget what it's called. Apple Arcade. There it is. So, and now it's moving over to console, which is super exciting. So, yeah. And then you see Fallout and Arcane, and then, you know, all these other, you know, The Witcher. I really love the Witcher series. I'm sad that Henry Cavill is not going to be playing Geralt anymore. I'll just leave that as it is. I won't say anything about the new actor. I haven't seen him act yet. I'll give him a chance. But yeah, it's amazing, and it just seems like a no-brainer to like kind of transfer those things over to other media and, you know, write it out as long as you execute it properly. I feel like, you know, and that's the hard part, right? Satisfying gamers and fandoms across different mediums. It's fun, but definitely a lot of money in it.
Yeah. To be timely, Women-Led Games is going to be a part of the Game Awards, but of course, looking at the nominees for Game of the Year and a lot of categories, we talked earlier about Final Fantasy.
Yes.
How many awards do you think Final Fantasy Rebirth is going to win this year?
I don't know.
You think it's going to win Game of the Year?
It's like, I don't think it will, to be honest. And I love Final Fantasy to death, but and it may be a recency bias on my end, just because I haven't gone back and played Rebirth since it released back in like February, March. So the other games that are up for Game of the Year were more recent, so it's a little bit easier for me to judge. And I'm more on the indie scene of like, I'm more in tune with the indie scene of games. So, you know, thankfully their judging panel is really robust, and they like dedicate most of their gaming hours into these big titles. So, you know, take what I say with a grain of salt, but I don't think it will. I wish it would, but I don't think it will. Just because it's up against, what is it? Astrobot is one that I feel like could win it, just because like it's such a palate cleanser to what like the world has been going through this year, and their sound design was amazing. Their environments was like they executed that game so well. I'd be surprised if it wasn't like a very close to contender with whoever is going to win Game of the Year. But yeah, I don't know. I want to say as a Final Fantasy fan that it has to win, but I don't think it will. I don't think so. We'll see.
Yeah, well, so we got Astrobot and we got Final Fantasy VII. So
yes, those are my big contenders right there, personally.
That's awesome. Want to close us out? Want to make sure people know how they can learn more? How can they support women-led games? Where can they find you?
You can find us on Twitter, Blue Sky, just at Women-Led Games, all one word. And then our website, Women-Led Games, also on YouTube and Twitch, which is where we'll be streaming our showcase on December 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern. IGN and the Game Awards channels will also be showing our showcase at that time. So, yay!
Awesome.
Check it out.
Looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Charmaine, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me ramble.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, please hit subscribe and follow us at bettergamers.com and on social media. Hope to see you next time.